with the remembrance of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. As a gift to the soul of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Al-Imam Al-Hussein and his honorable companions, recite the second salawat. For Allah to shower onto this gathering with His infinite mercy and compassion, and to hasten the reappearance of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. In one of the most desperate days in the history of the religion of Islam, when an army was approaching the holy city of Medina to annihilate every single Muslim, to put an end to the religion of Islam, to kill Rasulullah and his companions, Rasulullah stood to assemble an army, and he called on every single person capable and able to join him. A man came to Rasulullah saying, Ya Rasulullah, I've come to join you today. However, I am sad. I am sad because I left my mother crying at home. She's the only one I got. She's got no one else besides me. So when I left, my mother was crying. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says to him, return to your mother. And just like you put her in tears, make sure that when you return, she's smiling. And you make her happy. For the reward that you will receive in being next to your mother, caring for your mother, is no less than the reward that you will receive in joining the last messenger of God in jihad. Then he says to him, O young man, and know that your mother is your heaven and your mother is your hell. What does this mean? Meaning you can decide through your relationship with your mother, she's your heaven. You will enter heaven because of her. And she could also be your hellfire and the punishment of God. So you get to choose. This is your mother. She's your heaven or your hell. Then he said his most famous line, Al-Jannatu tahta aqdamil ummahat. For heaven and paradise belongs to the feet of the mothers. Being a mother in Islam is something extremely precious. The womb of a mother is extremely sacred in Islam, in the eyes of Allah. Allah in the Holy Quran says that He's created man to be His most noble, dignified of creation. This insan is the best of God's creation, and Allah chooses to place the best of His creation in a mother's womb. Being a mother is sacred in Islam. Being a mother, it is an extremely weighty, lofty position in the eyes of God. And today, the institution of motherhood is being attacked. Today, the world needs to be reminded, the entire world needs to be reminded of the importance of this institution, motherhood, childbearing, nurturing children, giving them the right upbringing, the importance of mothers in society. In this country that we live in the United States of America, nearly every single year, 1 million women choose to abort their children. This precious gift from the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon them. And there's a crisis. And I find that people who believe in Allah and Rasulullah and the Holy Quran, who are Muslim, sometimes blindly siding with the pro-abortion movement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if a mother, a pregnant mother, goes through a miscarriage, then this unborn child shows up in the Day of Judgment. And because this child is sinless, it's pure, goes and stands at the gates of paradise. Obviously, God offers paradise to this soul, to this unborn child, because it's sinless, it's pure. This unborn child, this fetus, goes and stands at the gate of Jannah, paradise, and says, "Oh Allah, I will not enter. I will not enter." Why? I will not enter without my mother. My mother who carried me. And because it is sinless, because it is pure, Allah accepts the intercession of this unborn child and grants the mother Jannah, grants the mother paradise. But the opposite also takes place on the Day of Judgment. On a day in which everything speaks with permission from Allah. Sometimes we're not given permission. We're silent. But what speaks? Our skin speaks. With the permission of Allah, our skin speaks. Our eyes will speak. Our feet, our legs, our limbs, our private parts, they will speak on our behalf. Why? Because we will deny a lot of things. I didn't do this. I didn't hear this. I didn't say this. I didn't perform this act. Allah says, you shall remain silent, and your limbs will speak. On that day, even animals will speak. An animal that was taken wrongfully, treated badly, treated poorly, will come on the Day of Judgment. Oh Allah, this person treated me badly. My owner treated me poorly. Similarly, the unborn fetus or a born child that was put to death will also speak before God on the Day of Judgment. And this is mentioned within the Holy Quran, Surah At-Takwir. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ. When this child that was put to death asks on the Day of Judgment, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. What crime had I committed? What have I done? What had I done to be put to death? And on that day, everyone involved will be held responsible. Everyone. They will be questioned. So some people might say, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you're making this such a big deal. Allah is Arhamur Rahimeen. Allah is so merciful, He's compassionate. Why are you making this such a big deal? Exactly because Allah is most merciful, most compassionate, He will hold us responsible. Because innocent lives are being destroyed. And I don't want to undermine the difficulties of pregnancy, especially some pregnancies. Some people are under the impression that men are not even allowed to talk about abortion. Why? Because it's my body, my choice. I get to do whatever I want. What is Sayyid Jawad doing sitting on the minbar and speaking about something he has no clue about, which is pregnancy, something he'll never experience, inshallah. So he has no right to talk about this. Yes, in a godless society, that is true. In a godless society, that is absolutely accurate. But for us Muslims, those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is much different. Why? Because my body doesn't belong to me. Islam teaches me, inna lillah. We belong to Allah. That is why we cannot harm our bodies. That is why suicide is forbidden in the religion of Islam. Why? Inna lillah. Wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And to Allah we shall return. And in the meantime, we ought to take care of our bodies. Let alone if there is another soul that exists in your body, that is an aman of Allah bestowed onto you. And like I said, I don't want to undermine the difficulties of pregnancy, especially some pregnancies. Some people may not be ready for this child. Some people may have not planned this child. Some people may be afraid of poverty. Some people may be carrying a child out of wedlock. There's a lot of different issues that may come up. And the religion of Islam is understanding to them. Brothers, sisters, whether you are here or elsewhere, I want you to pay attention to my next few sentences. This is an extremely delicate and sensitive topic. So please don't stop listening at a certain point during this address. Whether you are completely pro-abortion, continue to listen. Be attentive. Pay attention. Or, no, you're completely pro-life, completely against abortion. Also continue to listen. Because those are very sensitive topics. Don't leave this room, don't leave this hall don't end watching this video saying Sayyid said abortion in Islam completely haram. Or Sayyid said abortion is allowed in Islam. And I'll tell you, brothers and sisters, after 14 years, after spending 14 years at the Islamic Hawza seminary in Qom, I have formed my own opinions. I do have my own opinions. But my opinions are irrelevant. I never share my personal opinions. I never tell you on religious matters that this is my opinion. Why? Because you ought to hear the opinion of the Marajih, the Fuqaha. And I sometimes bring the opinion of a variety of Marajih. And some people come up and say, yes, we know this is not your personal opinion. We know this is the opinion of the Marajih, but we disagree with them. You may agree or disagree, that is fine. But technically, you really can't. Why? Because remember when the entire medical field was telling the world that we must be vaccinated? Every single one of our Marajih were vaccinated. Because that wasn't their field of expertise. Experts in the medical field were telling them that you must be vaccinated, so they got vaccinated. Similarly, when it comes to matters of religion, we must also listen to the experts. See what they have to say. And today, I also hear another wave of sentiments, and I want to address this tonight as well. In the season of Muharram, in the season of Ashura, we must focus on the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein. Only shed tears for Imam al-Hussein. Talk about the calamities that befell Imam al-Hussein. Such topics, abortion being one of them, is irrelevant in Ashura. Talk about this in Muharram. Talk about this in Ramadan. Talk about this in a different season. Talk about this in a seminar. Talk about this in a conference, but not in the first 10 nights of Muharram. The first 10 nights of Muharram should only be dedicated to shedding tears for Imam al-Hussein. And I understand the passion and the love that those people have for Imam al-Hussein. And I respect their opinion. But I beg to differ. Why? You know who took the very first mimbar after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam died? After Rasulullah departed this dunya, who was the very first person who took the mimbar? Who spoke? Who came to illuminate the minds of the mu'mineen? History records. Outside the school of Ahl al-Bayt, that's when Fatima al-Zahra received the news about Fadak. She was surrounded by women of Bani Hashim, her followers, her family, her support system. She said, bring me my attire. When she got fully dressed, she stood up. She left her home and she walked into the masjid of Rasulullah. Listen. The Muslimin, when they saw Fatima walk into the masjid of Rasulullah, this is what they say. Her walk resembled the walk of Rasulullah. Her gestures reminded us of her father Rasulullah, who had just passed away. So just by seeing her, they were in tears. They were crying. Then she came and she stood and she gave a sermon. A prolonged sermon, a long sermon, known as Khutbat Fadak, or Al-Khutbah Al-Fadakiyah. There she could have just came and said, Abu Bakr, who are you to take Fadak away from me? Fadak was given to me during the life of my father. Fadak belongs to me, give it back to me. But go and read Khutbat Fadak. A small portion of it speaks of Fadak, small portion. The majority, she talks about Tawheed, She talks about nubuwwah. She talks about the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She talks about qiyamah. She talks about the wilayah of Al Muhammad, the authority given by Allah to Rasulullah and his family and his progeny. Why is it that we must have imams? How are imams appointed? She talks about Hajj, she talks about Salah, she talks about Siyam, then she alludes to Fadak. This is what we learn. Fatimatu Zahra is our role model. And today, there are many people, if not every single one of us, you go to school and you wonder, should I be pro-life? Should I stand against abortion? Or should I be fully in support of abortion? And people get passionate about things because they see the whole school, they're talking about it, and they're wearing different t-shirts, and they're using different hashtags, and social media is buzzing, and they kind of join different sides. But they're also, I believe, especially this young generation, this beautiful generation, is also waiting to hear what Allah has to say about this. What should I do? And if I tell him that, listen, this is the opinion of the Quran, this is what you ought to do, then they'll have clarity. So we cannot continue to ignore such topics. We cannot call them irrelevant. In fact, many verses in the Quran speak of abortion. Many verses in the Quran speak of those who used to bury their children alive, because this was a trend then. And inshallah, I'll allude to some of the verses that are relevant to our topic. Why? Because this was what was happening in that era when the Quran was revealed. And I tell you, brothers and sisters, if the Quran was revealed in 2020, there will be many verses about COVID. If the Quran was revealed in 2021, there will be many verses about mental health. If the Quran was revealed in 2022, there will be many verses about abortion. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he left this, when he was speaking for the very last time to the entire Muslim community, he says, I've left amongst you two weighty things. Kitab Allah, the book of Allah, wa atrati al-bayti. I'm leaving amongst you the book of Allah and my family and my progeny. ما أن تمسكتم بهما لن تضلوا بعدي أبدا. Hold on to them together, not separately, together. And you shall never be misguided. And Imam Ali, when he talks about the Quran, what does he say? He says the Quran is as fresh, as meaningful, as insightful. Please pay attention to this, please. For the very last of us, as it were for the very first of us. So remember when you hear stories about Muslims who just heard the Quran, they heard Rasulullah reading the Quran, and they came and they embraced the religion of Islam because it was so meaningful, it was so powerful, it was so mesmerizing. Imam Ali says it will be like that for the very last of us, meaning the Quran has the solutions. The Quran answers the questions. The problem is we don't know how to look for the answers within the Quran. And then he says, the equivalent of the Quran are my Ahl al-Bayt. So through the hadiths of Ahl al-Bayt, through the actions of Ahl al-Bayt, through the stories of Ahl al-Bayt, we will be able to find solutions to every problem, an answer to every question. And that should be the job of this minbar. This minbar, once it's asked, it must give the most complete and eloquent response. And I don't want to take much of your time tonight. We're approaching the nights of Aza. So I'll make it very short. Number one, why do the majority of people get an abortion? And number two, when is abortion allowed in the religion of Islam? Let us examine this topic after your three loud salawats ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So why do people do that? How is it justifiable? I said there are many reasons. One of the reasons is because some women are running away from irresponsible men. Just a few weeks ago, I spoke to a sister who was telling me, I need to abort my child. I told her why. She says, I have 6 children. My husband's jobless. He doesn't work. He sleeps until noon. He's irresponsible. I cannot take care of those children. I work. I'm the breadwinner of the house. And I simply cannot go to work while being pregnant. It's going to jeopardize everything else for the 6 children who are living in my home. And sometimes, no. It's because this society has made it seem like women should take every role in society that men have assumed. And nothing should stop them. But pregnancy sometimes comes between their goals, their objectives, their achievements, and taking and assuming the roles of men in society. So I cannot be responsible for this child. I don't want this child. You know why this is happening? I'll tell you why. It's very simple. Let's not make it complicated. It's because this society has not appreciated the role of mothers. In fact, a mother should be paid by this government that spends so much money elsewhere on things that should not be so important and are not important. And they should pay women as soon as they are pregnant, till the time they deliver and after they give birth and take care of their children. This is the responsibility of a healthy society. If women were given the importance that they ought to have, the position in society, honored the way they should, then they would understand that this is the most important role. God, He created men and women. Why did He give the responsibility of childbearing to women and not men? Because He's the creator of men and women. Men will not be able to handle this responsibility. This is a great responsibility. And that is why Rasulullah says, Al-Jannatu tahta aqdam al-ummahat. Because they're willing to be patient. It disturbs the whole body of a woman through pregnancy. And even after child labor. And Allah refers to this in the Holy Quran. That she carried him in pain and delivered him in pain. Imam Zainul Abidin, if you want to know the value of a mother in an Islamic society in the eyes of God, go to Risalat al-Huquq Imam Zainul Abidin, the 4th Imam. He says, وَأَمَّا حَقُّ أُمِّكِ. You want to know the right of your mother? She carried you in pain. She delivered you in pain. She was willing to go through thirst to quench you. She was willing to go through every kind of pain so that she can put you in ease. For 9 months she carried you. She was not comfortable in her sleep. She was not comfortable when she walked. She was not comfortable when she was sitting. but she carried you with love. Then Imam Zayn al-Abidin says, you can never repay your mother. So pray to Allah. Pray to Allah. There's a prayer that we all ought to make. Pray to Allah to give you the honor and the privilege of being able to seek your mother's happiness and satisfaction. If society looked at mothers in this way and honored women in this way and took care of them financially and told them that this task has been bestowed upon you from God, things would be differently. And Allah refers to the main reason why people abort. Sometimes it's both. They are both in agreement. The husband and the wife, they're both in agreement. We're not ready for this child, let us abort. Why? Allah says in the Quran. We go to the Quran, Surah Al-Isra, chapter 17, verse number 31. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ. Do not kill your children. Why? خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ. Because you fear poverty. A lot of people, until today, and it's normal, we fear, I would not be able to take care of this child. Financially, I am incapable. Allah responds to this in the Quran. نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُهُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ. We are the ones that take care of them. The rizq is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only children, but animals and plants will increase your rizq in your home. Pay attention to this. Animals, domesticated animals, your pets at home. How many of you have pets? Raise your hands. MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Okay, put them down. You're all blessed. You know why? Because every day your pet speaks to Allah in prayer. Speaks to Allah in a dua. What does it say? It says, oh Allah, my owner is taking care of me. He's spending on me. He's looking after me. Oh Allah, look after him. Increase in his rizq. Bless him. Protect him. Protect his children. And their dua is tasbih. So it's accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's acknowledged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why one form of continuous sadaqah is to have pets. Continuous sadaqah. As you spend, it is considered sadaqah fi sabilillah. Now I know maybe some of the sisters, they'll be very upset with me tonight. Because her husband is going to go buy five roosters and throw them in the house. Now imagine this child, that is your flesh, that is your blood. Does he not come with his own rizq? Is Allah not going to increase in your rizq so that you can take care of your family and your children? Allah says yes in the Quran. He makes this promise. He says, I am responsible for them. Do not fear. Do not abort your child out of fear of poverty. Or wanting to achieve some worldly status. The greatest of women in history were not the ones that became engineers and doctors and surgeons. I'm not saying they're not great. That's not what I'm saying. But the greatest of them were the ones that were able to offer us Qasim ibn al-Hasan. al-Banin, who was able to offer us and humanity and society, Abbas, Abu al-Fadl Abbas, Fatimah al-Zahra, Al-Imam Hassan and Hussein and Sayyida Zainab. Oh, the Sayyid, this is not achievable. What about the mother of Shaykh al-Ansari? She was a normal mother. Her father, her husband was a normal man, an ordinary man. She said, I chose to be that mother who's going to have a very special child, so I never nursed my son without wudu. I never slept during Salat al-Fajr while I was carrying this child. I prayed on time. I read the Quran every day because I knew the effects that it was going to have on my child. So in her last days, she could not see. She was very old. They told her, they came to her. They said to her, Hajjah, do you know your son? He's become Shaykh al-A'zam, Shaykh al-Ansari. She says, I am not surprised. I trained him the way I took care of him. I expected Abu al-Fadl Abbas, a Salman, a Miqdad, a Ammar. He became Shaykh al-Ansari, Shaykh al-A'zam. Now, there are instances, and I want to say this. Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. I want to say this. There are instances in Islam where abortion is allowed. And if a woman aborts in those instances due to those reasons, she should not be shamed. And she should not feel with guilt for the rest of her life. And she should not carry this as a sin. What are those instances? Number one, before, pay attention, before the 4th month, if, number one, it brings danger to her health. It is dangerous for her health to carry this child. She is allowed, not asked, not encouraged, there's a difference, to abort. Or if it brings unbearing difficulty and pain in her life, and her life becomes intolerable. I think you understand what I mean. By the way, this has nothing to do with the man. The man is out of the formula. The man comes and says, this is unbearing for me, this is shameful for me, I cannot do this, I have children, I have a family, I have a wife, I have commitments. It's none of your, that's it. This is now out of your control. This is now her responsibility and her choice and her decision. And if she decides she's going to keep it, you need to man up and be responsible for what you have done and support her through the way. So 2 things. Number 1, it becomes extremely difficult for her to bear the child. Her life basically becomes miserable in other ways, in other words. Number 2, it is dangerous for her to keep the child physically. She may die. If the doctors tell her, not she thinks, if the doctors tell her that this is the case, before the 4th month, the most popular opinion amongst our ulama is they are allowed to have an abortion. She is allowed to have an abortion. And I tell you, brothers and sisters, this topic, it may seem like not the most relevant topic in the lives of people. But I tell you, it is because we do not know. It's not something people are going to publicize on. It's not something that people are going to announce. And it is relevant to many people. And we are fallible. And we make mistakes. And before I conclude, I want to say this. Tomorrow, I've talked about many topics, right? Tomorrow, I want to dedicate tomorrow to forgiveness. And that is why we have gathered in those 9 nights. so that we can arrive at this final station. How to seek the forgiveness of Allah. How to knock at the door of His mercy and compassion. And I want you to come tomorrow ready. Ready to use Imam al-Hussein, this ark of salvation, Safinatun Najat, and make your way towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah, forgiveness, and His maghfirah. And tonight, brothers and sisters, belongs to a young man, a noble man. On a night like this, remind ourselves of the son of Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, Qasim ibn al-Hasan, the nephew of Imam al-Hussein, a young man. Traditions say he had not gone through full puberty. He comes to his uncle, Al-Imam al-Hussein. After Aliyun al-Akbar and a few of Bani Hashim have gone, he comes and he stands in front of the tent of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, oh my uncle, can I come in? So Imam al-Hussein, as soon as he heard the voice of Qasim, he told him, Ya Qasim, please come. He hugged him and they cried. And he told him, Qasim, I cannot let you go. You remind me of my brother Hassan. Because Qasim grew up at the house of Imam al-Hussein. I'm meant to take care of you. I cannot send you to the enemies. You have done enough, my nephew. Go back. So he goes back to his mother. His mother says to him, take this letter to your uncle Hussein. Show him this letter. Qasim comes back to Imam al-Hussein. He says, Ya Ya Aba Abdullah, I want you to take a look at this letter. What did the letter read? To my dearest brother Hussein, there will be a day where you will be left all alone, without any aid and support. Bila nasirin wala mu'een. When I've said this, I said some of the family of Imam al-Hussein ignored his cries, ignored his letters, ignored his calling. Some people think I am referring to Abbas and his brothers. No, by family I mean the tribe of Imam al-Hussein, his clan, his tribe. So Imam Hassan says, some of the family and friends will neglect you. Few will be with you. On that day, I'm not there to take care of you, Ya Aba Abdullah. I'm not there to aid you. But accept my son to go before you on the day of Ashura. In that moment, Qasim was also carrying the amama of his father, Imam Hassan. So Imam Hussein put the amama of his father on his head. And he told him, Bunayya Qasim, my son Qasim, my beloved, كيف ترى الموت دونك? How do you find this death that you're approaching? Are you afraid? Are you nervous? He says to him, Ya am fi nusratika wallah ahla min al-asal. To aid you and to support you, by God, it is sweeter than honey. Let us take the hearts and the souls to Karbala. Only a few nights left. Let us go to Imam al-Hussein all the way from here, brothers and sisters. Ya Sayyidana wa Mawlana, inna tawajjah